Welcome back, everybody. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at my Elna Lock Pro 5, and in this video I'm going to be continuing on my journey here to see if I can wake up this vintage serger. I say vintage because it's 35 years old, and it's a mid-1980s Elna serger. It was made in Japan. Elna never made sergers. They evidently had input into the design of it. We're all used to seeing things designed in one country and made in another. And they were doing this with sergers, even though Elna had a fairly proud history of making sewing machines once upon a time in Switzerland. But anyway, as I mentioned in the last video, this video is about getting lubrication to the serger. And just, if you haven't seen the other videos, check those out, because I'm putting these, trying to remember to put them in order. And I'm doing that because I want to, there's a certain process I use when I'm trying to wake up a vintage sewing machine, and I'm using the same process for this serger. Now, even though this is the first serger I've ever done, in spite of the 10 years of working on vintage sewing machines. So this is basically, I'm just, exploring like I did the first time I ever worked on a sewing machine, and we'll see what happens. Now, in the last video, I went and first I used my shop vac and the little tiny attachments to vacuum out loose dust, and then I went back with cotton swabs, no surprise, and went in to remove other areas where I could see. Now, just to kind of clarify something, when I talk about removing dust, we'll shine a flashlight here, I want to show you guys something. If you notice, this machine has basically, I've cleared out any loose dust and any dust that I felt was stuck in areas where metal parts move against each other, like right there. Now, sometimes on the inside of a machine, I don't know if I can get it to come off on my hand here, sometimes oil and dust will appear on something like, the inner wall. Now, if it's loose, it should come off with a vacuum. If it sticks, chances are, there's residues of lubrication holding it there. Whether you clean this or this is really up to you. That's more of an aesthetic thing. As long as the dust isn't going to move and fly around and getting to the moving parts of the machine. And again, this is all going to be covered, but we're doing this for very practical reasons. The aesthetics of how this looks is really a moot point. I suppose if you were going to restore something for a museum, you might take it further. But the whole point of this is to get the machine working properly again. So I thought I would show you guys the method that I am going to experiment with here. I'll turn the flashlight down a bit for a moment. Natural light is actually better, I believe. One other thing to mention here is that right below here on the right is the hand wheel, and then you see the pulley and the belt. We do not want oil here. Oil will degrade the belt, and more immediately it will cause issues with friction, and you really don't want that. So don't do that to yourself, not necessary. Let's see. I think what I'm going to do in this case is what I do with any machine. I typically start my cleaning up top and work my way down, because gravity, if you clean the bottom and you start cleaning the top later, gravity's going to pull dust on the area you just cleaned. It sounds awfully obvious, but you'd be surprised. I know, I'm sure I've done it to myself before. And as I go here, I'm seeing a few areas I missed. I'm just taking alcohol on my cotton swab here and looking for anything that I might want to remove. But what we're doing is I'm going to start with putting sewing machine oil, and I'm going to start at the top. Again, I do this with my vintage sewing machines, and I believe what I see right here, let's get this tilted up, I believe this is a manual pressure bar adjuster, and I'm just going to add some oil, again, 1 or 2 drops, and let's see, just to make sure. This is turning fine, but again, I like to at least give it a drop of oil. And I think I had sort of talked about in the last video, I was going to mention to you guys, when you have a machine that is running properly, right? It's running great, it's been used, it's not been sitting dormant for a long time. you typically want to follow the user manual directions. When it tells you where to oil, you follow the directions, and typically it suggests that you put 1 drop. And the reason for this is that virtually all domestic sewing machines, and quite a number of industrials, they don't have an oil sump, right? Some industrial machines will have a big pan underneath and they hold lots of oil. That's a little different. But typically when you have a home or domestic sewing machine or serger, they don't have any place that holds oil. When you apply oil in an oiling point, it's meant to be there for a certain amount of time, and the more you use the machine, eventually the oil works its way out, it gets used up, and you have to reapply. So while you normally only use 1 drop of oil per spot, when you're waking a machine up, I think it's okay to use more than 1. Now you have to still be careful, especially in areas near your motor. You don't want any oil. When we get around to the back, I'll show that to you. You want to avoid that as much as possible. But for generally oiling a machine, you typically, when you're waking one up, when you're trying to restore a machine and you think, gosh, is this machine ever going to run? You end up putting, and you have to kind of go by feel. I typically will put at least 2 drops, sometimes 3, depending on the area, because the machine is very dry. Okay, it has some oil residue in it, but it doesn't have the normal amount. Now this machine has, just like some of the Swedish and German sewing machines, it has these little wicks that are, I don't know what they're made of. I call them felt wicks. I don't know that they're felt, but they are designed to feed oil to various parts of the machine that are hidden behind the cover. You normally don't have to take, disassemble the panels off of a machine to oil it, but because we're restoring it, that's different. Now on this side, or on the back top side, if I could turn this to you guys, you will see this little opening. Now this is a normal oiling point for the machine. And if I put my oiler here, what that should do is begin to, if we zoom in, you can see there's like a little, looks like a little bushing, but it's just a feeder, right? It's like a little brass cylinder. It's kind of cool that it's brass. And as I put oil into it, what it's doing is it's going to feed oil into what looks like a pad of some sort. I don't know if it's foam or maybe it's felt. I think it's probably felt. And as it feeds that oil down, it should wick, thus the name, down through these points. Now, I don't know how long that takes or how much oil I should be putting in here. I'm going to go ahead and come underneath while I've got this open. Normally you would use for normal oiling, you would come up top, but I can reach it right here and a little more quickly. And it's like a little cup, and I can see the oil that I poured in here, and it's gradually soaking into this piece of felt inside this little cup, for lack of a better word, reservoir, if you want it. Now, what that should do is feed all of my wicking here over time. Right, I don't know how long it'll take. Might take a few days, and it should eventually absorb this. Now, you can wait, and you can keep doing this, or you can go ahead. I primed this pad up here, but then you can go ahead and start just putting, right? You can see I'm just taking my little oiler here along. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit better for you guys. And you'll notice a color change, and that's the best way to know that you've got oil in the wick. You can see it getting darker, just like things often do. Now, as they get wet, now here's another, and I don't know if this is kind of a tail. That looks like a tail, so I don't know if that's going anywhere, but we'll put some oil on it. And you can see I'm just feeding this wick with oil. And I'm not worried because the wicks will draw from this little cup up here as they need to, right? So they may not need everything I put in the cup right away, but they will eventually. But in order to overhaul the machine, I want to make sure that I'm priming this, right? You're priming this in a way because it's been waiting so long for oil. And I'm going to we'll turn the camera so you guys can see a little bit of it here. And this wick comes up and then it wraps around the needle bar. So we're going to come over here, get some there. Now part of this I can't really see. So I'm going to have to, I can kind of maybe gently prop it up. I don't want to stretch this wick or get it moved in any weird place, but I'm just going to kind of prop it with this little artist brush handle here and reach around and see if I can't get that wick nice and saturated. Because remember, as I was showing you guys in the last video, when this machine is moving, notice that the wicks are moving with it and they're actually coating parts. It's a clever, it seems awfully rudimentary, but it's kind of a clever system if you think about it, because who wants to remove these panels every time your machine needs oiling? But again, what I'm doing here is not routine oiling that you would do. Let's say this machine has been fully overhauled, it goes back into service. Of course you want to oil it before every project, but you're not doing what I'm doing. You're going to be oiling it at the points you can reach when the machine is assembled. What I'm showing you guys here today is really more of a restorer's or overhauling lubrication, because the machine clearly has gone without it for a while. And so like I said, we'll come over here to the needle bar. We'll see how much of the wick I can reach, because it's coiled around you know, in a very clever way. It's basically coiled around the needle bar, and you know, whoever designed these machines, whether it's a sewing machine like some of the Husqvarnas I worked on, and some of the FOFs that have felt pads in different places. There's actually a pad, I don't know if this is showing up on the camera or not. Let me shine my flashlight in there. You guys can see right here, there's like a felt pad, and I'm gonna maybe raise this up and give you guys a different angle. There it is, right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and saturate this with sewing machine oil, because it's, you know, I can tell it hasn't had any in a while. It's very possible that the person who last used this may have oiled it up top. But again, you know, I'm hoping, my assumption or my hope is that my doing what I'm doing to this wick is similar to what would have happened when it was new, and that it will, you know, will hold this oil for a while, right? Now I can come down and get, you know, better access. That's probably would have been easier than lifting it up. I could have just done that. But again, first time doing this. So now, normally this wick, if you watch the movement, you can see that the wicks are moving with these you know, metal drive pieces that need the lubrication. What I'm going to do though, I'm going to go ahead and add some to the metal parts while I have them. Going forward, it's my assumption that the wick will help keep these parts lubricated for, again, how long, I don't know. I'll have to look into the service manual and see. Maybe the owner's manual says, take your machine into the dealer every so often. And in that way, you know, I can say, okay, I've gotten oil to the metal. I don't have to wait for the wick to get it there. The wick is a good feature to have once we get going with the machine, and hopefully we get it running again. That's the hope of all this effort and time, other than making a video, which I hope is helpful. Okay, where am I at here? Looking for these little holes. Sometimes these holes will give you access to the shaft that's inside rotating, or it might not. But again, the user manual is not, I don't believe it shows these little areas, because I think this probably would have been part of servicing that you would have gotten when you took your machine in. But one of the goals is to be able to do this ourselves. That's why I like removable things. You guys saw, and I think in the first video, where I was trying to kind of highlight, you know, as you go through time and machines get more modern, over time they become a lot more difficult to overhaul because you don't really have access to them, which is a real shame. But that's really been, I'm even going to put some oil here right on the needle bar, right? And then moving forward, you know, my hope is that my oiled wick here will take care of the ongoing needs for lubrication, at least for quite a while. Let's see. Now I want to take a look down, and here, this is looking down. It's kind of an odd, this thing is shaped almost like a pyramid. It's kind of an odd thing to photograph. Hopefully you guys can see. I'm going to tilt the camera here, and see if we can zoom Alrighty. Now, when this is turning, I got to be careful I don't let my loopers hit the pad I'm resting this on. If you see this moving, guys, you will notice, I don't know if this is going to help. Okay, put my flashlight on. You can see this, we got metal pieces moving, we've got Wick. Now there's Wick way down in here, but that's going to be easier to access when we turn this, I'm going to turn it on its side so that we can reach the bottom. But from up here, we're going to, we followed the Wick down to this point anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and get some oil. I'm putting 2 drops, sometimes 3. And I'm putting it where I can see that metal moves against metal, okay? Because there's a cam that's rolling in here, and I want to make sure that that gets lubricated. Because remember, these parts spin against each other for a lot of revolutions, okay? And again, there's no oil tank. Now, oops, I put my oil thing right here because I can see a space there as it comes around. I wonder if that will show up any better for you guys. So I'm going to put my oiler right here and get underneath this cam. The cam looks like a fork. Wish I had one loose I could show you. And going to even make sure that I'm hitting as many points as I can see. And this is not too bad. I wonder if I got this one or not. There we go. So you can see it's not just one drop that I'm doing here. And that's okay, because again, it's not so much that you're going against what the user manual tells you to do. You're really trying to do something that would probably be done, at a sewing dealer if they were doing it correctly, to give the machine an overhaul or a service, because these parts are not normally easily accessible, and no one really wants to go in there and have to go in and disassemble the machine every time you go to oil it. That's just not practical. And even if they told you to, most people wouldn't. I wouldn't blame them. But again, this is different, right? It's not unlike when I've shown you guys in other videos about lubricating things like the bearings or the bushings in sewing machine motors, right? That's not something you do every time you oil your machine. That's more of a servicing, or in our case, restoring or trying to wake up an old machine. Okay, so from what I can tell, and if I've missed something, you guys point it out to me. I don't mind that. So that's very helpful. Okay, so we've gotten a lot of these pieces up in here. These sections have been oiled. And I can always feed more oil into this little cup up here. I can do that from even when everything's put back together, and that's how it's designed to work for normal lubrication. Okay, now let's take a look at the. We'll just come around the front, and then we'll end up at the underneath when we're done here. Okay, let's pan back out, and we have a lot of moving parts here, right? I think we have more moving parts than in normal sewing machines. Okay, so what do we see here? We see loopers and guides that are moving. So I have a moving part here. I want that to be oiled. And the other side of it, which is not really visible, I can't get the camera down in there, but just like I've shown you guys with knobs, if something is moving here, that means something is moving on the other side. So I'm going to try to get some oil on top of it, and I did. Barely. Could barely see it. I might be able to see it better when it's upside down. But anyway, here we go. What else have we got here? We've got parts moving. I see something I want to touch up in terms of getting it clean. There's a bar here that's actually coming in and out, and I want that clean. I don't want dust and grime clogging up that, because if I oil it with that dust and dirt on there, it's going to make it harder on the machine, because it's having to have, when you have metal parts moving against each other, you don't want dirt or grime in there. You want them to move freely. So that's our goal, one of our goals. Okay, so now we've got other moving parts here, and I want a close-up. I want you guys to see this if possible. Okay, now this, we need a little bit more height here. Sorry about the constant adjustment, guys, but This thing has so many different pieces to it. I'm going to try to tilt it towards you a little bit. You see this right here, this bar? Watch what happens when I turn the hand wheel. It actually goes down into I don't even know what that is, some part of a drive shaft. So I want to make sure that area is clean. I see some dust building up there. So I want to get that out of the way. And then I want to get some lubrication in there. Oh, look here. We got some sort of shiny stuff. Again, I think that's kind of some sort of metallic thread. People often sew with all kinds of threads with these machines. You know, if you're making costumes and stuff that needs to be sewn quickly but have some durability to it. And I'm just guessing. Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but that's something I'm kind of wondering. And I'm seeing kind of a buildup of goop here. So I want that stuff out of there. So I will get a little tool. And if you're not sure what tool to use, sometimes, you know, I've never done this before, so I'm just going to reach in, and I've got a lint brush, fairly stiff bristles on one end. I've got my little cruling tool. I'm just, you know, take what you have and see if you can get down in there. Oh, look at that, guys. Look what I pulled out of there. Wow, that was in there. Now the machine was working in spite of it, but again, you know, if you've got a machine, you know, if you're going to go to the trouble to try to give it a servicing on your own, you know, give it the attention it deserves. You know, the machine may still work, but golly, you know, if you really want to get what the machine's potential is to perform for you, you got to give the machine its maintenance. You know, it just stands to reason. You know, if you don't service an automobile, yeah, it'll run for a while, and then it will not. And you may not be happy with it. Okay, I've got that area cleaned, so I'm going to go ahead and take and put some oil around this bar because I know oh wow. I've noticed that this thing moved, the machine turned from the first time I got it, but as I go around and clean a little more, lubricate here and there, over time, you know, it's gradually coming back to life and turning the way it was meant to. Now, let me get my pointer. It's going to be tough to show some of these, but I will try. Okay. Right here, guys. I don't know if you can see right here. There's a lever that's moving with one of the loopers on it, but there's a space. And I don't know for sure, but I'm willing to lay odds that there's fuzz. Yeah, there's lint in there. And again, I see lint with some kind of glitter. Again, this is moving, you know, and you know, these machines are robust, no doubt, but you know, if you, like I said, you've got the machine open, go ahead and clean it out. Give it a chance to really perform for you. And you know, you may find that, wow, that really was worth it, you know, and hopefully it's not something you have to do all the time. That would not make for very productive tool, which these machines are. So now I'm going to put my oil in here, and let's see how it moves. I'm having to sort of study how it moves. Okay. All right. Now we've got, here's this. Let's see. We need a different angle. Okay. Notice this bar right there. It's moving in and out through the chassis of the machine. It's got a bushing on it. It's like a sleeve, but I see dirt there, and this poor thing's going to have to be, it's going to be trying to form a stitch. So let's get some of this junk out of there while we can. And does it mean your machine will always be free of lint? No. Or old oil. Actually, the more you use a machine, the happier it is. It's been my experience that when I get a machine from someone, on rare occasion, I buy something that someone is selling but they've been using a lot. And they've been generally taking care of it, maybe not giving it a full overhaul. But when you use a sewing machine and you keep it oiled, it's actually in better shape than when it's been sitting for 10 years. Because sewing machines that sit, it's a lot like car engines. They're not really meant to sit, and that's not really good for them. If they are kept in climate controlled comfort, machines, by the way, like the same humidity and temperatures that humans do. And you can put them in other places, but here we go, there's a little clump I just pulled out. Right there. You know, it doesn't look like much, but it's been building up for a while, so I want that stuff out of there. And again, if I were to use this machine, I may find a client for it, but if I were to use this a lot, eventually I'll get, I'm going to have to oil this, and when lint sees that oil, it's going to stick to it. So it's not as if this is permanent, like forever. But, again, if you want your machine to last, you have to be willing to give it or have someone service it for you. I have people who've come back to me or people who've brought other machines to me because they didn't want to service it themselves. They wanted to use them to sew. And a lot of my clients, well, most of my clients, if they are experienced sewers, about half of them are, they know a lot more about sewing than I do. And they will come to me and say, you know what, I don't want to have to spend all weekend working on a machine, or sorry about that, or sometimes it depends on the machine. Some of my machines take a long time. They'll take more than a weekend to overhaul. It just depends on the model. But they don't want to. A few of my clients actually are interested in sewing machine overhaul, and they've actually taken up the hobby themselves. And I'm so excited to hear that when someone tells me that, because no matter how many people you may come across who do sewing machine overhauls, the truth is there's so many out there, tens of thousands of us could start doing machine overhauls, and we'd never get to all the machines out there. There's so many out there that need and deserve to be overhauled and serviced. And a lot of your sewing centers, let's go ahead and get the oil on this shaft here. I've never seen this, but it looks pretty important, right? Now, this area right here, this is the upper blade, and this is the lower blade. And let's see if I can turn that. And I'm not going to oil the blades because I have to go back and look and see what these blades actually require. These screws look like they hold this little panel on. This panel, I think, is a safety panel, so you don't cut, keep the blades away from human fingers. And if I was going to replace the blades, I think this would need to come off. I'm guessing. Again, I've got the service manual, but I'm not going to go and read it and memorize it. I like having these manuals, even the user manual, honestly, is a good reference for when you get stuck. You say, oh, I wonder if it's in that manual. It might be, and that can save you a lot of time and effort. Let's see. Okay, we've still got moving parts. Let's see if I've addressed most of the parts that I can reach on the front. And that's just a portion of them. Okay, so now let's turn. Okay, well there's two easy ones there. This is as my grandparents' generations would say, you can oil this, you're getting gravy, right? That's the easy stuff. Now, these are spots that you can see when the machine is all put back together. These two little holes with the red paint are areas that are in the user manual. Okay, that's a place where they want you to oil yourself, and you can easily reach them. You don't have to disassemble the whole machine to get to them. So that's okay. They need to be oiled, so there we go. But they're let's see now. Okay, I'm even going to come over here and put a little bit of oil on the lower. It'll help if if I change this angle for you guys, on the lower part of the needle bar, just because the needle bar is, you know, it's just so crucial, and it experiences so much friction over the life of the machine. Okay, let's go to the side. And we will change our angle for you guys a little bit there. Okay, well, we see a few areas that are red. Those are easy to spot. But remember, we're doing an oiling for servicing, okay? Now this looks to me like it's rolling on what looks like some sort of cam. I'll have to do a video on cams one day. It's kind of hard to explain what I mean when I say cam. Oh, I don't know if I've got goo under here or what I've got here. It looks like, I think these two parts, guys, let's see if this is going to be obvious what I'm pointing to. I'm pointing to right here. Give me my pointer. This piece and this piece. When I turn the hand wheel, notice that they're rolling, and I think this is a cam setup. Well, it is also underneath where the needle pierces the fabric, and I'm pretty sure what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing lint and oil together, which create this muddy mess. You see that? I want to get that off of here. I really don't want it on there. The machine will work, yes, but you know, it's going to tax the machine. The machine's going to have to work harder, and it's going to wear the parts more prematurely, if you will. So wow, look at that. Ooh, dirty, grimy machine. So I'm just going to come on this end for what I can reach, and boy, I go through a lot of cotton swabs here. And then I can turn it. Notice that if I turn the hand wheel and get it to move back, I can reach the back half. If I get it to move forward, I can, in theory, reach the front half. So I'm going to come under here, and I'm just trying to, you know, I'm not disassembling this mechanism. You shouldn't have to, but I'm going to try to get as much of this out of there as I can. I haven't oiled this yet, because once you oil it, you know, then you've got, you know, you could make more of a mess. I think lint is easier to remove when you get it out when it has less oil in it. So let's see what we're getting here. Another thing you can, excuse me, you can do is take your cotton swab. I'm dipping these in alcohol, by the way. Another thing you can do is you can put the end of the swab on the drive shaft that is part of this cam. So I'm going to push it not up against this piece where I was just a minute ago, but I'm going to kind of hold it as I rotate and see if the cam has got any of this goopy stuff on there, which I think it does. And, you know, get some of that to come off there. This can seem tedious, guys, but keep in mind, you know, this machine didn't just, you know, turn into this condition overnight. You know, this machine, I don't know how much it was used. I suspect it got some good use from its prior owner or owners, right? So I'm just doing everything I can to get some of this stuff off of here and clean it up as best I can, right? Some people might put other things to try to clean it out. I want to make as little mess as possible. So let's see. I may take my little crewing tool here and see if there's anything I'm not really. I'm going to be careful. I don't want it to jam and damage the parts. This looks like the way your dentist pokes around at your teeth. Although some of the inexpensive dental tools you can buy make wonderful. Some of the tools you guys have seen me use over the years, they're actually, I bought them at a flea market once and they said dental tools. I don't think they were really like, you know, really high quality, but for our purposes, we don't need them. And they were very affordable, and I found them really helpful. Okay, let's see. Alrighty. Just trying to decide how much more I want to pursue here. Now, if you have small hands, it'll be easier. I have large hands, but that's okay. I'm still able to get in here. When you're working on tight spaces, if you have small fingers, etc., that's actually a blessing. But if you don't, You can still do this. I just did it. Okay. Let's see here. We got more parts pivoting and moving. Wow. Okay. Now, down in here, if you guys can see, this is kind of an, I'm going to try to get you a good angle here. If you ever decide to overhaul one of these machines, you will appreciate just how hard it is to see, even when you're not trying to show people on a camera. Here we go. Maybe that's a little bit better. Get my pointer. All right, guys, you see this part back here? There's a drive, there's a shaft, for lack of a better word. Now in the back, I think I see another hole, maybe with some red, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to easily see this when I turn the machine on its back side. So, if I can reach it now, well, might as well go for it. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and try to pull off whatever I think is in the way. You know, just kind of come in underneath and over, under and over, and see. And again, I'm trying to focus on what matters, not on what just, you know, if it's not pretty and shiny, that might be okay. Don't feel like you have to clean every, you know, nanometer off here. It's where the machine is moving. That's where you want to, in fact, I can tell that is that little spot right there has, it may not show up on camera, but right here is a little spot of red, which tells me that is an oiling point. Okay, so let's go ahead and start from the top here. So I'm going to start here. And a lot of times it's easy to forget, or you say, well, I don't remember where the metal was moving against metal. Just take your hand, putting it on the hand wheel and turning it. Always turn it in the direction that your machine is supposed to go. I just noticed that these two parts right here move against each other. So I'm going to put some oil here. This looks like it wants oil in this little track, I think. Let's see, what else have we got? Let's go ahead and do here, here. Go ahead and go down in here. There was some red paint there, so okay, that should make that turn easier. Here's an easy one. This is our little spot here for, I'm keeping the oil off the plastic. People have different ideas about whether that's safe to do. Since I'm not sure, I'm going to err on the side of caution and not. This is where what I just did here is right there. That's a piece of metal. Now that's plastic covering, but I wanted to get that oiled. And this is a hole. I don't know if it's for oiling, but we'll put some there. Okay, what else have we got? If you look closely, these two places don't seem to move, but this one sure does. So I'm going to oil it. And I'm going to oil these. I can't see them moving, but there's a reason why they have a joint there. So just in case, right? Okay, what have I got? Oh, I've got another area here. Take a look at this spot right here. You see these, it looks like an opening, and this little shaft, watch when I turn the wheel, it moves in there. So that tells us, oh, we've got another place to clean and to make sure it gets lubricated. So again, you know, a good rule of thumb to remember, people say, well, what's the difference between oiling something that has been sitting forever, or we think has been sitting forever, and something that is that has been done recently? It's the best metaphor I have found is if you remember the Wizard of Oz, when they come up on the Tin Man and they start oiling him all over. They keep putting more and more oil, and he eventually starts to move, and that's kind of what we're dealing with here in a way. Okay, so we're getting more movement. Really, I lift up my pressure foot, then whoops, I can't do that. By the way, if I leave the pressure foot up and I turn the hand wheel, one of the loopers runs into it. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to damage my looper. Okay. I just learned that. Sometimes you learn by doing, guys. It's just how it is. Okay. Come in here. This is mostly just grime. Again, if you see dirt and grime and it doesn't show and it's it's oil and it's not interfering with moving parts, it's less crucial for you to interfere with. That's kind of a rule of thumb, if you will. There are lots of nooks and crannies in this machine. I keep discovering them. But again, be patient. This is not something you're going to just waltz in and do in 15 minutes and be ready to go. That's just not, I just don't think they work that way. And it's okay. They don't have to. Let's see here. The other thing to remember, and this is true of sewing machines generally, if you may put more oil than you normally would, and if you do that, when you first go to do some test stitching, you've got thread in your machine, whether it's a serger or a sewing machine, it's very likely you're going to get some dripping, okay? Because you've got more oil in the machine than you would normally have in it when you're using it, when it's not being overhauled. But don't worry about that, okay? Because when you test stitch on a machine, you can do some sewing, get some scrap pieces of fabric, and when you have those scraps, let those scraps absorb the excess oil, okay? Sewing machine oil will normally, I say normally, most of the time, excuse me, it will come out in laundry. But if you're worried, if you have any questions about that, maybe you're dealing with maybe something that's dry cleanable or something, then if you want to be extra careful about getting oil on your fabric for something you're making, just do a bunch of test stitching and let the machine kind of work, and it'll work out. Any of those excess oil will work its way out. It may even come down the needle, but eventually it'll clear. Okay. And now we are going to, I believe I did this in the last video, I need to get underneath. So I'm going to take the machine, and once again, I've got these are just, it doesn't have to be this. I happen to have some felt pads. I just grabbed them. You don't have to have felt pads for this, but you need something, you can wad up a t-shirt or something, but just make sure, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Don't know if you don't want this in the way. You don't want this open. And when you come down, remember, over here is our plastic. Now you can see it. Up here is our plastic side door. Okay, that's a very delicate part. Even with the door, make sure the door is closed, and even when it's closed, don't rest it because the weight of the machine is here. Okay, don't take a chance. Put the weight of the metal part of the machine onto the felt pads so that you have suspended the door and you don't put any pressure on it. Okay, now I can just take this. This actually makes life a little simpler. Now, we are underneath the machine, guys. We're on our way, hopefully on our way to being done with this part. Okay, so what do we got left? You can see some of the oil that has dripped onto here, and I don't know if this was something I don't know if, I think maybe I must have done it from up above. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. Now, you notice I was grabbing this. This looks like something, maybe it was probably lint, but you want to be real careful with your wicking, okay? If you start scraping it or trying to get it perfectly clean, you could damage it, and it's not necessary. We're trying to get the bulk of the lint and the grime out of the way, but again, now here, again, we don't have any red spots, but we know we got metal turning on metal, so I think we should oil this. Okay. And this looks like some sort of bearing right here. So I'm going to, let's see what's on here. I'm seeing some old dirt and dust and grime. Any of you who watch a video like this for whatever, I'm at 44 minutes already, guys. You are definitely a die-hard vintage sewing person. because, you know, or maybe you have insomnia and you need to fall asleep, and that would, this could be useful for that. You never know. Anyway, I'm going to come in here with oil because there's a shaft here and a ball, and it's like a circulating ball. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let's turn the camera, give you a little bit of a zoom. This is a fascinating engineering, and I can even see as I turn, I can see where something has gotten inside there, and I don't want any kind of grime in there if I can help it, right? I got to be careful. I don't. This has a curved end on the very bottom. I don't want to scratch it. That would be a huge mistake. So it looks kind of grimy in here. I suspect it's just dust, but again, I'm more apt to use my cotton swab than anything else because, oh yeah, you can see that. See the black goo? That's a combination of oil and lint dust, and it needs to come out. And I'm getting what I can see here. You say, well, what about the rest of it? Well, one way to do it is to turn it, and as you turn it, it may reveal more of it for you. We're not going to disassemble this, and I don't think we should. I don't think we need to, but we do need to make sure that we're addressing anything we can get to. I mean, we've taken the machine apart, right? Why not do it right, or do the most that we can, okay? So we're not doing it for aesthetics. We're doing it to help the machine do its job, because machines don't want friction. So now that I did the alcohol, I'm going to come back with oil here. I should have done the alcohol first. Now we've got another metal on metal turning point right here. So I'm going to just put that in there. And of course, I'm looking for the metal openings first, the ones that I need to get to. And then I'm going to, we did up here when we did the front for that looper. Now I'm going to come down here and do this one. And then we've got more goo down here as well. And if you've never done one of these, I haven't either, but the work I've done on the lock stitch sewing machines tells me that just turning the hand wheel, you can find a lot of areas that need lubrication, right? Even if it's not in the manual. And again, you don't need to do this for basic oiling before your projects. I don't want you to think that I don't think anyone would ever use these machines if they were that maintenance intensive. But this is, this is like taking your car in for the 50,000, 100,000 mile tune-up type deal. That's what it's for, right? Now, you can see again, we have this shaft here is dropping and moving into a bushing, and then it comes up here. So I want both ends. I want this side oiled and then down below, so that as it moves back and forth, it doesn't have to fight as much friction. Okay, we're giving the machine a break, helping it out. Okay, what's left for this part, this stage of the game? Let's see here. I am looking at some moving parts. Let's see if I can get these to where you folks can see what I see. Okay. Now these, I may have already done these, but I can't tell, right? I know there's some down here below. I don't know if I got those moving parts or not. So I'm just going to make sure that I did. Maybe I did, but that's okay. For an overhaul, full servicing of a machine, don't worry if, like I said, if you put more oil than you should, you will get dripping. So, set yourself up for this project, or you don't want to make a mess of your dining table because you didn't prepare. And it's really not any different than if you were preparing, if you're going to do a craft project on a dining table. You want to use basic common sense to prevent your table from becoming a total mess. But anyway, this is I think I've done that already. And so, what we've got, yeah, I think we're okay. I think we are in a good place as far as that goes. And so, we have oiled the machine, guys. Next video, I'm going to talk more about the motor, we're going to check, things and see if it has an oiling point. The motor looks like a normal sewing machine motor. It's just set up in a different location. Oh, I almost forgot. I've got my wicks. I got to make sure they're nice and saturated with oil. A little easier to see them with the flashlight. If you're wondering how I'm handling the flashlight, I think I put on one of my videos about tools, I have a a flashlight that has a strap and you wear it on your head. So you look like you're down in a mine somewhere, but this is very useful because you know, your hands are free. I think I keep one in my car too if I ever need one, if for any reason I do, and I don't have to hold a flashlight and do something that takes more than one hand. So just a useful tool. I think I got these. Yeah, I think I did talk about them in one of the videos. I got this one I got at Costco. It works very well. It has a nice strong LED light. The batteries do not last that long, but I think it's just because it has a powerful light, you know. And okay, I was looking to see if this was messy. I can't really tell what's in here. It's probably just okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't looking at any fuzz or lint. Okay, so now you have seen, and you can see some of the drips out here probably on the little pad that I've got. We have done excuse me, an initial oiling. Unlike with other with lock stitch sewing machines, there's not really anything to oil here because everything is accessible. Remember, many of our sewing machines typically, got to get up a little higher for you guys. Typically you go on the side, but you don't have access to all this front area the way we do with the Serger. So, okay, the oiling, so far so good. That is the oiling or the waking up of the lubrication of a 35-year-old Elna Serger, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. If you made it through the whole video, God love you. Again, I want to take you guys through as much as I can and to show you that it's okay, especially if it's not your only Serger. You didn't just buy it, and right? This is, you know, I bought this 35 years old used from somebody that collects stuff. You know, just goes around getting not vintage, but salvage things, right? They salvaged it, and I said, oh, no, don't, you know, I'll take it and I'll see what I can do with it. So, onward and upward, as they say. So far, I haven't tried to sew with this machine yet, so I really don't know what it's going to do, but we'll find out. And if you have something like this and you want to try it, again, I know I've worked on machines, regular sewing machines for years, but I've never worked on a Serger. And I'm not scared. I'm going to try it. It may never work. It may never sew. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think that's a lot of us who like to tinker on things. That's the approach you have to have. You can't go in assuming that it's all going to turn out right, but you give it a try, right? And you see what you can do to save what I believe is one of the better made Sergers. In as far as Serger history goes. Anyway, guys, if you have one of these machines, please leave your comments. If you have any suggestions on what I might be able to do to find my way or fumble my way through this overhaul, please make your suggestions known there in the comments. And we will see you in the next video when we're going to talk about the motor of this Swiss/Japanese Serger. Take care, everyone.